Hello and welcome to Emma's ESL English. This month I want to do 3 episodes on real British English. I think there's a little miscommunication about what we all sound like over here. So today we're going to talk about accents because I think that's where the main miscommunication has happened. And then next week, I want to talk about weird ways that people might talk to you in the UK. It'll make sense. It will. And then on the third week, I want to talk about some dialect words that are still in common use across the UK. All 3 of these things might be quite confusing for you as an international speaker of English, especially since I guess you're going into any travel in the UK, living in the UK situation, thinking that we sound in a very particular way, which we're going to cover today. And then in the final week of this month, I want to cover some super weird idioms. So today, accents. So there is what is considered internationally to be a normal British accent. And actually, there's no such thing. So this has come about for a few different reasons that we're going to cover today. When I say a normal British accent, you're thinking of an English accent, to be specific. But you think it's a British accent because we make out like we're all the same country. But then if we're playing football or rugby, we're definitely not the same country. We've covered this before. So, yeah. But anyway, certainly the accent is English. What you're thinking of is the RP accent, or the Queen or King's English. RP stands for Received Pronunciation, and it is considered the standard British accent. It used to be the accent of the BBC, although they're trying to sort of hide that history. But traditionally, they either only employed people who had an RP accent, or you had to learn an RP accent to work with the BBC. Nowadays, that's all changed. But it did used to be the way, which is one of the reasons why that's the accent that so many people associate with the UK. It's also the common accent that you would hear in a lot of movies. If you've ever watched things like Downton Abbey, The Crown, all of those kind of things, that's your RP accent that you're hearing, received pronunciation. So the RP accent actually comes from the southeast of England specifically, and is particularly the accent of the upper class in the UK. The RP accent is not the standard British accent or even the standard English accent. If you ever come to the UK, you might be surprised how many of us you don't understand, because we have some very, very strong accents in the UK. So historically, English is not the main language spoken on the British Isles. If we go back far enough, we have languages that have long been lost, Anglo-Saxon being one of them. We have Welsh, which is still very much alive and well. The English tried to kill it, but it's definitely back. Cornish, the last full speaker of Cornish passed away, so Cornish is considered a dead language now. Irish and Scottish both have their own languages. The Irish language is starting to come back and is certainly still spoken by some people. And the Scottish language is mostly spoken around the Northern Isles of Scotland, but is definitely still part of Scotland. And I thought it was interesting the last time I visited Scotland, for the first time ever, I noticed the Scottish language, Irish and Scottish, or Gaelic and Gaelic, was on some of the signposts, which is what they do in Wales. If you go to Wales, all of the road signs are in English and Welsh, and they were starting to do the same thing in Scotland, which is a really exciting move forward for Scotland to claim back their language. But it's not widely spoken across Scotland. Most Scottish people use English or have both languages. Of course, going back much, much further, we used to have a Viking king. For many years, we were conquered by the Romans, who brought Latin to the British Isles, and after the Norman invasion, the ruling class spoke French. So all three of these languages have had massive impact on the common English that we know today. There are Viking words in it, there are Norman words in it, or French words, and there are Latin words, and the alphabet came from the Latin. So they have a huge impact on us. All of these different things created strong local dialects that even within my parents' lifetime were still very much here. And it could vary. You know, in this local area, for example, when my mum first came here to work, she was a nurse, so she was going out into the community, and she noticed that the accent, the dialect accent, could change from one side of the mountain to the other. So even within a really quite small space, we can hear these differences. But certainly now, when we think of cities in the UK, there are very clear, distinct accents that belong to those cities. While you might hear a lot of RP accent spoken internationally, in fact, once you get here to the UK, you are much more likely to hear local accents. Famous British accents include Cockney, which is one of many London accents made famous by Charles Dickens, and particularly in the Oliver Twist movie, we can really hear it strongly. Cockney is famous for its Cockney rhyming slang, which we'll come back to at the end of the month. This can be very, very difficult to understand, even for native British people, even for those of us who might use it without realizing it. Cockney rhyming slang is very confusing. Geordie is from Newcastle, a big city in the northeast of England that used to be a coal mining city. Welsh is a much softer accent, and it includes the h sound from Welsh. This sound in Welsh is written with two L's. We can hear the same sound in the Scottish accent, notably in Scottish words like loch, spelt L-O-C-H. So in Scottish, this sound often comes at the end of the word and is spelled with the letter CH, whereas in Welsh, the sound comes often in the middle of the word and is spelt with two L's. But the sound is basically the same. And if they have to use them, they will continue to use those sounds when they're speaking. So it can give the accent literally a different sound. The east of Scotland has a much softer accent than the harsh guttural speed of Glasgow. One of the most famous British accents is Liverpudlian, which was the accent of the Beatles, the very famous 60s band. And heading south further, we can hear the Somerset farmer's twang, which ironically is very common in Bristol, which is a massive city, but the Somerset twang is still very much there. So next time someone says they like the British accent, be sure to remember to ask them, which one? Please like, comment, and subscribe if you found this interesting. And I'll see you next week. Bye.